Nuzlocks, particularly Pokemon ones, are far from being a rare occurrence on the internet. They are everywhere, and that's because they are great. A challenge that can turn a game made for all ages, so must be possible for young children, into an extremely interesting and challenging experience, requiring hours of research and strategizing just to be able to beat a gym leader or a boss level. With precision that can't fail, because if you rely on luck, your run could end at any battle. But what's really great is that the rules of a Pokemon Nuzlocke can be bent in a way that fits other games' gameplay, and that's what I wanted to try, because though I like Pokemon, I also like Persona. I tried my best to fit the rules of a Nuzlocke into the gameplay of Persona to try and start an attempt of a Persona 4 Golden Nuzlocke. And yes, there are spoilers, however if you're watching this I'd hope you at least know the mechanics or have played the game yourself. Now, first of all, I'm going to start by saying I'm not setting the rules of a Persona 4 Golden Nuzlocke, I'm just going with the rules because I think it's the best way to keep it really difficult and also possible. Keep in mind that these rules are based off hardcore Nuzlocke rules, but if you want to try it for yourself, you can change or adjust the rules however you want. This is just what I chose. So to start off, the difficulty must be played on at least hard. Although I considered doing very hard, the only thing of significance that changes is that you gain less money and XP from enemies. Which, the reason I didn't choose very hard is that I don't think it makes the game harder, just way longer. The damage values you take and give are equal on both hard and very hard, so to not waste several hours longer than necessary, I just decided to play on hard. Then, I chose the generic name for everyone doing a challenge run, which is the canon name, Yu Narukami, and began the Prologue. Which, while it's still running, I'll continue explaining the rules. So the next rule is regarding items. In hardcore Nuzlocke Pokemon games, items are not allowed during battle, and only handheld items are. For this run, I've applied the rule that you are able to use one item per teammate per battle. Now your first thought might be that it's to make up for the handheld item used in Pokemon, but that was not my original intention. There is one boss fight where it is impossible to beat without using at least one item, and that fight comes up very early, so I'll go into depth when it happens. But if you just skip that, you could theoretically do no items with that one fight as an exception, which would make it harder. However, I find the strategizing of what item to bring per teammate, plus the mandatory use, makes it more fun that way. The next rule is pretty obvious and is part of all Nuzlocks, hardcore or not, and that is if a character dies or hits 0 HP, they can't be used anymore. Now, that's a pretty obvious one. The issue with the gameplay of Persona is making it fit with the next rule, which is the level cap. On every boss there is a level able to be seen on the wiki, although I'm not using a hard cap due to the gameplay because the protagonist must be used in every battle, and if you have things where characters die and you need to level up other characters, there can be issues, but I will try my best. Throughout this video I never break the level cap. There are two scenarios in which throughout the recording of this video I ran into potential issues, which I'll address when the time comes in regards to getting close to the level cap. What happens early in Yukiko's dungeon and another in the later half of Kanji's dungeon, but like I said, you will see I never break the level cap. The next rule that I've adapted from Pokemon is encounters. I decided that you may pick up one persona per floor of a dungeon, and if you get two personas in the same shuffle, you must take the left one because it was drawn first. Also, if you get a one more change to a persona card, you can choose not to take that, but keep in mind if you choose to, you must grab that persona because that's your encounter. In terms of fusing, you can go ham with the personas, but remember, you are pretty limited. Considering you only have a limited amount of encounters, that means you could possibly get stuck with a garbage persona and no more encounters to help get out of that sticky situation, unless you beat the boss and progress to the next dungeon. And on top of all that, obviously, the compendium is banned, otherwise this would be way easier, though it did cross my mind to allow it purely for the social link bonus, but I've never used it in the video, so it's still a rule for now, but I might change it in the future. However, it's not like there's really much to do during the day in this challenge, so it might stay that way. Now the final rule I've decided on is pretty obvious, but I'll say it anyway. If the protagonist dies at any point in the game and you are sent to the limo for the death screen, the run is over. You must delete the save you are using and either load back to a save that skips the prologue but takes place before the first combat sequence, or just start a new game. It's up to you, honestly, but I have been using a save that takes place right before the very first battle because it would save time if I fail. That's the rules, and immediately I begin explaining something that I said I'd address later, which is in terms of item usage, because that comes up immediately. In the first fight that happens when you awaken, it's perfectly fine. However, the problem I'm discussing lies with Shadow Yosuke. In the Shadow Yosuke fight, the gear you have for the fight is absolute across all playthroughs. It stays the same. Izanagi has the same skills and you have the same weapons and armor. But the part that really matters is that it's just you. For the fight you haven't gotten any teammates yet. And on hard, Shadow Yosuke hurts. What makes it worse is that I don't think at any point during this fight it's possible to dodge a move, meaning you have to take the hit every time. Of course, when he does his Wind of Oblivion attack you are weak to, you can guard, but it's simply impossible to beat the fight without using an item. Before the fight, Teddy gives you 3 medicines, which at that time fully restore your health. If it is possible to beat it without using one of those, I've never seen it. This is the main reason, plus the 2 reasons above I'm allowing 1 item per teammate per battle. Although I did make a mistake or 2 when it comes to getting those 1 mores, I barely scraped through at the fight on 9 HP, and Yosuke becomes a member of our party, which helps a lot.
Persona!
Now, of course, after more story, we end up at the entrance to Yukiko's castle, where we can meet our first real boss of the run. You know, one we can actually strategize for. The ideal persona for the fight is Angel, who comes with the Garu move, which deals wind damage, which Shadow Chie is weak to. Although she'll put up green wall, I was really hoping to do as much damage as possible. However, I don't end up getting Angel, and I get Pixie instead. However, upon editing this, I'm pretty sure that encountering a Pixie on this floor is forced upon you as the first shuffle time where you get the quote-unquote tutorial, but Yosuke will suffice due to his element being wind, so I grind it to the level cap being 6 and hop into the fight. The fight goes very, very well, and I have no times where I feel I'm in great danger of Chie, and even though I mess up a few times with forgetting to guard with Yosuke when she uses Mazio, I take her down without any problems, and Chie joins the team.
Okay.
Now, as you can see, I realized that even though Shadow Chie is level 6, when Chie joins the party she's level 4, way below the rest of my team. So this is where we start to see the level cap being a hindrance due to Chie being way below our current level. However, it doesn't end up being a problem due to the way experience required per level works, so all of my team is on level 15 before I fight Shadow Yukiko. It's just the protagonist Yosuke are on the far end of 15, where Chie is at the beginning, but that doesn't matter as long as we aren't level 16. So as far as my strategy goes for Shadow Yukiko, my plan is to get all encounters and hopefully fuse a persona resistant to at least fire or physical, and one who is hopefully high level. And then give them the Bufu skill card, as Shadow Yukiko is weak to ice, so 2 Bufus in the form of protagonist and Chie will help a lot. But still, Shadow Yukiko has a lot of potential to kill someone with her extremely fatal move in the form of Shivering Rondo. Other than that, my only worry is finding the right persona, and the potential of having the prince that the boss summons cause issues. So, along with Bufu, during my initial grind to reach Shadow Yukiko, I do find the Zio skill card, as the prince is weak to electricity, which means as long as Shadow Yukiko doesn't have blue wall up, we can still do all out attacks and get as many 1-mores as possible. Fortunately, I find out I can fuse Orobus, who's resistant to fire. This will be a huge help, as I will have much rather a fire resistance than a physical resistance. I decided to pass on Rukunda, Terukaja, and Rekukaja, as I still have a Zio and Garu skill card for elemental attacks. Plus, it comes with Argy, something that'll be very useful in the upcoming Avenger Knight mini-boss, which I was now ready for on my next trip to the TV world. However, I thought it would be a good idea to head back and do some stuff in the real world, such as buying some items, selling materials for money, new gear, and social links. I continue Yosuke's social link because Chie's hangouts never seem to show up for some reason, so when Yosuke wasn't available, I began the Mary social link, in the event that I make it to the end of the game and do the golden ending. But for now, it was time for the Avenger Knight boss battle. I immediately used Yosuke's item for the battle, being a firecracker, to get it knocked down and test my all-out attack damage. However, I actually managed to make it dizzy, so I don't do an all-out attack, as the opponent being dizzy gives me an extra set of turns due to it skipping his turn. And after utilizing my turns to deal as much damage as possible, since having exposed its fire weakness, it uses red wall, which is better than it attacking. Then I make what could be considered a mistake. Hysterical Slap is a move which enrages an opponent, which means it can only do regular attacks and it does more damage, however it also takes more damage, which I didn't think would be too much of an issue, but having recorded this, I now know that it was a big mistake, and it almost killed me and Yosuke. I managed to recover with Yosuke using Deer and then a medicine on protagonist. And then there's no further issues, and I get to floor 8, get sort of near the level cap, and then I head back to the real world and prepare for my next visit to grind for the Bufu skill card and hit the level cap. And just as a little fun fact I thought I'd add in, I hunted for the Bufu skill card for 2 hours. Though I got a lot of items resetting floors, I put Bufu on Oribus and hit the level cap, ready for the Shadow Yukiko fight. But before that, I actually wanted to wait until near the end of the deadline so I could get as much social link rank with my party as possible. Being able to endure hits will be a lifesaver for my team. Unfortunately, I don't ever find the opportunity to hang out with Chie, but I get Yosuke to as high as I can before heading back into the TV for the fight. Alright, so the fight itself began perfectly fine, alternating between Bufu with Chie and the protagonist while using other elements or physical moves when it uses Blue Wall. I used Yosuke's item for this fight on the second turn, which was of course the Ice Cube. When the prince joined the fight, it was great for its summoning to consume a turn, and then I was able to hit its weakness consistently, and it dealt minor damage, effectively making it just a way to stall Shadow Yukiko's turns, as it spends 2 turns summoning it where it doesn't arrive on the second summon attempt. After that, we hit the hardest point of the fight. Shadow Yukiko begins using an extremely deadly combo, Terror Voice and Shivering Rondo. Terror Voice inflicts the fear status on one person, and while this wouldn't be too bad, but Shivering Rondo is the real big issue here. Shivering Rondo deals heavy almighty damage to those who are fearful, which is a game ender if combined with one of the effects of the fearful where they were paralyzed by fear and unable to guard. First, Yukiko instills fear in Yosuke, however, I'm able to guard the Yosuke, allowing him to survive the incoming Shivering Rondo. However, someone else wasn't so lucky. Next turn, Yukiko instills fear in Chie, and she's unfortunately paralyzed by fear and there was nothing I could do. Chie goes down, meaning I have a significant disadvantage for the rest of the fight, but most of all for Kanji. Fortunately, Yukiko's weak enough to the point where she can be finished by just the protag and Yosuke, but now I only have 3 teammates for the entirety of Kanji's dungeon, which is slightly terrifying.
Oh, Yosuke's in danger! He needs help! Persona!
I knew for a fact that there was some very troublesome mini-boss incoming, plus the next dungeon boss has 2 minions with him, which means it's a 3v3 and not a 4v3. I was not feeling confident at all. However, that's Yukiko's dungeon complete, meaning that after some story we're able to move on to the second dungeon, Kanji's dungeon, the Steamy Bathhouse. And while progressing through the story, I learned something slightly irritating. That would have been very nice to know, and I will know from now on that if I ever do this again, for those of you who can't read, Yosuke could have removed Chie's fear, letting her live if I got Yosuke up 1 more rank, which it would still be a chance, but when it comes to Nuzlocke, you want to rely on as little luck as possible and remove as much chance of dying as possible. Immediately, just from my memory, I know that the enemies in Kanji's dungeon are some of the most brutal in the game in that point of progression. The basalts do massive physical damage and are heavily resistant to physical, making them a tough foe. However, this is where I learned about the amazing item that I swear no one has ever used, Vanish Balls. Vanish Balls are an item that allow you to escape from any battle as long as it is not a boss, so they were super helpful in avoiding potential fatal encounters, and I got quite a few while trying to get the Bufu skill card. But by the end of Kanji's dungeon, I did run quite low. Anyway, the first boss was quite easy, and I didn't really have any problems with it, but what I really want to start talking about is the second mini-boss, the hardest fight of the run so far. It's hard for even normal gameplay if you are anything underprepared or over-leveled. Calling its skills annoying is a severe understatement, as if you aren't guarding, can instantly kill any party member. The worst part is, it is level 24. The level cap for the dungeon is level 25. So I had to think of something. I decided to buy some new gear and reach near his level, but enough to the point where I wouldn't over-level Shadow Kanji, as long as I skipped as many shadows as possible after the fight. The goal was to take him out as fast as possible while blocking whenever I thought he was going to attack, to ensure that I wouldn't die and fail the run instantaneously. And thankfully, everything goes to plan. As Yukiko's and Yosuke's movesets continue to improve as they level up, I'm able to have more options and strategies open up to me. And using their improved movesets, I'm able to maintain high health thanks to Diorama on Yosuke and Diving Grace on Yukiko. On top of that, I fused my persona for the dungeon, Rakshasa, who's resistant to physical, which helped out a lot and will continue to help me for Shadow Kanji. Having taken down the final thing standing between me and facing Shadow Kanji, I do the same thing I did for Shadow Yukiko and go get as many social link ranks with my party members. Lucky I did nothing with Chie, I guess. Somewhere in all that, I also get new gear and hit the level cap, as well as put together the final moveset of Rakshasa, which wasn't particularly interesting or good, but I was still confident enough. Part of me thought I was going to die in Kanji anyway due to only having 3 party members. And speaking of the fight, let's jump right in. I immediately debuff the nice guy, as he is the buffing member of the enemy team, meaning he's a priority to take down. Due to having Medea on Yukiko's, poison wasn't an issue either. Although, I thought it could potentially be an issue if I wait on it too long and Yukiko gets enraged, making me unable to heal without using an item. However, it never becomes a major issue, and after taking out the nice guy, I focus on the tough guy, who without the nice guy isn't that much of an issue. And then there's only Shadow Kanji left, where after exchanging hits and healing for a while, he goes down, and I somehow defeat Shadow Kanji with only 3 teammates, meaning I'm back to 4 teammates with Kanji joining the team. Just absolutely necessary for the upcoming Shadow Teddy fight. So I go back to progressing through the story, and then I hit rank 10 with Yosuke, and end the video for now. I'd like to hear what you thought of the run, and I'd appreciate it if you could like the video, because that lets me know if there's a point of doing a second part to this, and if well received, I'll do a second part. If you made it this far, I very much thank you for watching, and I'll see you in another video.